The undercut, the overcut, and the double stack are the three main pit stop strategies in Formula One. The undercut is the one we see the most often. It is usually the most effective. It's also pretty dang exciting to watch. The undercut is when the trailing car pits early for fresher tires, then they put on a really fast outlap or laps to make up the time difference. The idea is when their opponent pits, the trailing car will pass them while they're stuck in the pit lane. When I was at the 2021 US Grand Prix in Austin, Texas last year, I was sitting on turn 2 and I saw Max get a really bad start. Lewis pass him on the turn 1 exit with 2 Red Bulls chasing behind him. Lewis flew by me. It was super awesome to watch, but the Red Bull strategists had to come up with a different way to win. So they came up with the undercut to get Max in early on fresher tires in order to make up that time, which they did, and it won them the race. The thing about the undercut is your tires will wear out before your opponents, so the timing is critical. It's obvious on the surface, but just how worn out they'll be later in the race or later in that particular stint, that's what the race strategist is for. Traffic on track definitely plays a big role on if the undercut will work or not, but remember, the golden rule in F1 is whatever your opponent does, do the opposite. Now, the undercut really only works well on certain tracks. Tracks that have high tire degradation due to being very abrasive or grip demanding may lend themselves to the undercut because the new tire is just that much quicker, especially if the tracks allow for your tires to be at peak performance really quickly. This creates a larger time difference between the fresh rubber versus the old rubber. The length of the pit lane is also a factor. The longer the pit lane means the car will be stuck at 49.7 miles per hour for a much longer period of time, giving a very quick car already on an outlap an opportunity to pass. So that's the undercut in a nutshell.
Help! I'm in a nutshell!
So let's talk about the overcut. As for the overcut, that's used more when the trailing car has a performance and pace, but can't really let them ponies run. Could be due to weather, traffic on the track, other issues, so the driver stays out a few laps more while their opponent, or a good chunk of the grid, is in the pits, allowing them to put in some blistering lap times to make up the time difference. Alex Albon used it in the Australian Grand Prix of 2022. Sort of. Dude stayed out and put on 57 laps on one set of tires. So to recap, the undercut is where you pass your opponent by pitting before him and using your new tires to be able to be faster on your out lap than he can go on his in lap. The overcut is the opposite, where you're betting the new tires haven't warmed up yet enough, basically. Okay, so let's talk about the double stack. The double stack is when a team brings in both cars on the same lap. Their goal is to get one car in and out as the other car's pulling in. It's high risk because if there's a mechanical issue with one of the guns, or let's say a wheel nut gets misthreaded, just ask Valtteri Bottas, then both cars are screwed. But if you do it right, yeehaw, you got yourself a 1-2 finish, baby. Woo! Just ask Ferrari, who performed this successfully at the 2022 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. You know, when stuff finally stopped blowing up around the track. But the biggest thing about pit strategies actually is the race within the race. Attempting to predict your opponent's pit strategy, their next move, and attempting to influence it. Trying to push them in a certain direction that's advantageous for you. Like we saw Lewis Hamilton do to Lando Norris in Russia in 2021. The rain was starting, the race was ending. Lewis was pushing Lando to stay out a lot longer than he really wanted to, resulting in Lando sliding off the track into the wall, and it ruined his chance at his first race win. Brilliant mind game, race within the race move by Lewis. Adapting throughout the race with your plans, teams relying on their race strategists, data, and driver feedback to make critical decisions on the fly. It was awesome to watch. I think we should talk about the race strategist role here for a second. You'll often hear teams saying, move to plan B, stay on plan A. These are often pit strategies, and the mind behind it is the race strategist. The race strategist studies the track, conditions, etc. to come up with a series of pit strategy plans prior to the race start, probably including likely scenarios they will encounter during the race, because things don't always work out as planned. They take into consideration things like the amount of traffic they may encounter on an outlap after a pit. When is the best time to be on the track for cleaner air? But like Mike Tyson always said, everyone's got a plan till they get punched in the mouth. What races have you guys seen the undercut work well at? Do you think we'll see the overcut a lot more this year due to the behavior of the new cars? Let me know what you guys think in the comments section. And a big thank you to you guys for giving me the great suggestions on new videos. After taking a couple weeks off, I'm looking forward to putting out a lot more content for you guys. I'll see you in the next one.